Gender is probably not just the most controversial, but nuanced topic. Its link to sex seems almost impossible to disconnect, as many of those who identify as the opposite gender want to change their bodies to match. They want their outer appearance to match their inner feelings, and feel great distress if denied permission. Ben Shapiro famously says often, "Facts don't care about your feelings." However, telling this to a transgender person almost always results in greater feelings of frustration. We might want to tell these people that they should learn to live with the biology they were born with and to love who they simply are, to be transvestites instead of going all in. But while this is a sympathetic approach, it isn't empathetic. Humans are, on average, emotional creatures at their core, so their beliefs more often stem from solid emotional feelings than any scientifically proven fact. So we need to take wisdom from this quote by Theodore Roosevelt. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The reason on what makes people with transgender feelings have such high self-terminating rates seems to be up in the air at this point. Whether it is the feelings themselves or the abuse they feel, transgender people deserve more empathy than they usually receive. But one thing remains. I will only speak the truth. I must convey my mind. Let's define some terms. Gender, the psychology of an individual in association with their biological sex. Sex, the physical structure and makeup of a body associated with genitals and hormones. What is a woman? An adult human female possessing eggs and the natural ability to be impregnated. What is a man? An adult human male possessing sperm and the natural ability of impregnating. What is a transgender person? A person who feels more akin to the opposite sex biology than the biology they were born with. What is an intersex person? A person whose genitalia is ambiguous, deformed, but can still be identified as male or female. No in-between sex has been identified as being both male and female. No true third gamete associated with a third gender has been found either, apart from eggs and sperm. What is the third gender or non-binary gender? An imaginary category of gender that manifests itself in no observable, discernible, or physical way. Those who think they can explain the non-binary gender actually can't, because telling someone what something isn't is not the same as telling someone what something is. In many Native American tribes, there is what is called being two-spirited. The term is a modern invention from 1990 used to describe an old idea where a person is exhibiting qualities typically associated with the opposite sex. We might say that a man has both the spirit of a man and a woman, thus being two-spirited, simply because he enjoys typically feminine things. This person is put in a ceremonial role-playing in which he portrays both genders, though he wouldn't usually be considered transgender. None of this negates the original biological sex the individual was born with. Takatapui is a Polynesian term from the Maori language, which refers to homosexuals. As the Dictionary of Maori Language from 1832 defines the term as an intimate companion of the same sex. In modern times, the term has since become an umbrella for anyone in the LGBTQ+ community. Fa'afafine is a curious social construct in Samoan culture. The term refers to boys who are raised as girls, often because the family had all boys and wanted a girl.
Fa'afafines, they have the flair and the creativity of the female gender, but they also have the brutal strength of the male gender.
Fa'afafine are a diverse group in their own right. Some feel great distress over being raised as girls and outright reject being submitted as ones. Others feel content being more effeminate than the average man, yet still affirm that they are males, while others seem to be outright possessed by the spirit of Fa'afafine, or the feminine spirit, as Carl Jung would say they are anima-possessed, would seek to live fully as the opposite sex, and often would seek medically transitions. It is hard for me not to bring up the case of David Reimer, who was also raised female without knowing he was born male as a part of a social experiment by Dr. John Money, to disastrous results. Still, I'll allow the audience to do their own research on that topic. Now we need to talk about Margaret Mead, an anthropologist who actively lived with and studied many Polynesian tribes. She took detailed notes on how many of the tribes she lived with dealt with the topic of gender. The Arapish tribe of Papua New Guinea is a very feminine-based tribe, where both the males and females are super kind and gentle to each other, to the point that they don't even have a word for rape, and would have a hard time understanding the concept. They would say that the father and mother would give birth to the children. The mother would give the physical birth while the father would go out into a field simultaneously to act out the birth process as a spiritual birth to ward off as many evil spirits away from the mother as possible. The Mundigamor tribe, on the other hand, is a much more masculine-based society. They are rather harshly aggressive with each other. Due to women having less upper body strength than the men, they would more often resort to sneak attacks. Nevertheless, the men and women would rape and abuse each other constantly and call it romantic. The Chambori tribe is feminine-based, yet has a more precise division between males and females than the previous tribes, yet the traditional roles were observed by Mead to be reversed. The women appeared to do all the hard manual labor, wearing plain clothes, while the men would seem to laze around, playing dress-up and wearing makeup. On its surface, this society would appear to be a win for gender theorists, a matriarchal community that seemed to be dominated by women. Still, Mead should have mentioned that it is in fact not so. While neither gender competed to dominate the other, it was still considered inappropriate for women to participate in politics and power, as it was the man's job. This goes back to the idea that while there have been women rulers and leaders, there has never been a true matriarchy. All cultures are and were rather patriarchies to one degree or another. When Rainey Eisler was researching the history of patriarchy in her book, The Chalice and the Blade, Our Past, Our Future, she discovered that while some cultures were more equal among the sexes than others traced their lineage through the mother, others worshipped centered around a goddess, and other cultures were pure patriarchies, there never was a culture in which it was purely a matriarchy. There was never a society where it was a group of all females, which made up all the rulers and excluded all men from positions of power. Often, when it appears that there is a matriarchy in a culture, it is when the men are busy doing things elsewhere, while the women stay behind to take care of the homeland. Even though society can influence the sexes' gender roles, it should be understood that there is also a solid biological element to the whole thing. Some communities are more feminine and others more masculine. Some women are more masculine than some men, and some men more feminine than some women. However, while there are some women more muscular than some men, on average, men are 3 times stronger than the average woman. The strongest person who ever lived is a man, as it is that the majority of men are more masculine than the majority of women, and this is an undeniable fact. As a result, men are the ones who are historically known to be the warriors across all cultures. For this reason, it is nearly impossible to find armor specifically made for women. In most areas, it is non-existent. While there are tribes where some women would help out in warfare, it is the common consensus among all cultures that the man is expected to fight and die for his land so that his wife and children can live peaceful life. All this because evolution or God determined that since men can't get pregnant, we need to be strong enough to defend the women who can. Even in more peaceful and feminine cultures, because the male lineage has a history of violence, our evolutionary psychology has determined that we are the more aggressive sex. As numerous studies would suggest, testosterone, the hormone most prominent in males, is the hormone primarily responsible for aggression. Females with an abnormally high amount of testosterone for their sex are also very aggressive and masculine, but they are in the vast minority. Masculine traits are called so because they are most prominent in the average man, likewise for feminine traits in females. And men are indeed more aggressive on average than females, as shown by the fact that men commit the vast majority of violent crimes. As a result, men are more likely to be victims of homicide, and more men than women are in the prison system. While many women look at these statistics and say that masculinity is toxic, note that the most of these crimes result from boys who didn't have good father figures to teach them how to control their aggression. As Warren Farrell, author of The Boy Crisis, will tell you, the psychology of females stems from the fact that they can become pregnant. The fact that they are the ones to spend 9 months with the child growing in their wombs creates a natural connection between mother and child that the father lacks. Mothers then become the more protective and nurturing of the two parents. We find that women's brains produce more oxytocin than men's, making it easier for them to make that strong mother-child bond, and indeed is a factor in women being generally more social than men. Of course, the psychology of males and females are far more similar than they are different. After all, they are both human. Both exhibit qualities of masculinity or femininity to one degree or another. However, it is also should be considered how the differences in biology, which shape their unique experiences, also shape their character. As evolutionary psychologist Professor Anne Campbell put it,
"It seems to me quite extraordinary that you could imagine that evolution has operated on the reproductive systems and has had absolutely no effect at all on our brain, the single most expensive organ that we have in the body."
Should men and women be as masculine or feminine as they want to be? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But consider the gender equality paradox. When you remove all social or economic pressures from a person, that individual will pursue a career they find best suited to their interests, which is why women in such situations tend to aim for traditionally feminine jobs and men towards masculine. So, where does that leave transgender people in general? I find it arrogant for a man to say he knows what it means to be a woman, as if he knows what it is like to have monthly periods and be pregnant for 9 months. Or for a woman to say that she knows what it's like to be a man, as if she knows how world-ending it is to be kicked in the balls. John Gardner refers to this concept in his book, The Art of Fiction, as psychic distance. Originally, the term was used to refer to the distance between the reader and the characters she was reading about. But let's say she is reading about a man's experience with the world. She might understand his plight, yet there is still a strong disconnect. She is reminded that she is just reading words on a page. If she is watching a movie, she is still reminded of herself and the frame around the film. However, she would close the gap even more with a VR headset. An experiment was done where white people experienced less racial bias by putting on a VR headset and looking at virtual black skin. Yet, because we privileged white people never personally experience what it's like to grow up with a single mother in a crappy neighborhood, we will never fully comprehend what life is like for most black people in America. If we were to play a fully immersive VR game that puts us into the body of a bat and flap about, feeling all the sensations of a bat, the psychic distance would still be a thing, as we still have our human brains pumping human hormones. Similarly, if a man gets surgery to look like a woman, we might ask, does he really understand what it is like to be a woman? Has he closed the gap? He still can't get periods or experience giving birth. Even if he has a uterus transplant, I doubt he could handle it. His body simply is not made for one, and would surely reject the organ, and he would surely die when attempting to carry a baby in it. The psychic distance that separates people, beasts of the field, fowls of the air, critters of the earth, fishes of the sea, vegetation, the earth, the space, it all keeps order in the universe. It keeps up from down, love from hate, good from evil, order from chaos, shadow from light, and even male from female. It keeps it expanding. It keeps existence as is. For it must needs be that there is an opposition in all things, if not so. Righteousness cannot be brought to pass, neither wickedness, neither holiness nor misery, neither good nor bad. Wherefore all things must be a compound in one. Wherefore, if it should be one body, it must needs remain as dead, having no life, neither death, nor corruption, nor incorruption, happiness, nor misery, neither sense nor insensibility. Wherefore it must needs have been created for a thing of naught. Wherefore there would have been no purpose in the end of its creation. Wherefore this thing must needs destroy the wisdom of God, and his eternal purposes, and also the power, and the mercy, and the justice of God. Wherefore all things must have vanished away. If a male were to cross over into the realm of the female fully, his death would surely be inevitable. He would need to die to oblivion, and another would take his place, to be washed clean of ever having been male to begin with. Memories would be lost, dreams destroyed, hopes devoured. And if the male became entirely female, he would surely say, there is no difference between the man and the woman. They are identical, equal, the same. None are sacred, all are sexless. And when all are sexless, there will be equality. There will be no women and no men. There will be but a fraternity, free and equal. The only consoling thought is that it will endure but for one generation. And these preachers of equality know only this, pure vengeance in their hearts, and the abyss consumes them whole. Suddenly there is no meaning in man or woman, nor in being human. They think of themselves as no different from the beasts, and they de-evolve. Human becomes just as undefinable as man or woman to them. They seek to be ageless, sexless, raceless, and humanless in spite of their biology which they were born with. They call good evil and evil good because for them there is no difference. And this will indeed endure but for one generation. For indeed you need both male and female to create more generations. They would then, after the abyss of nihilism, be destroyed. So be homosexual if you wish. Dress in clothes more associated with the opposite sex if you will. Be as masculine or feminine as you want to be. But this is where I draw the line. Man and woman must remain separate, unequal, the same, forever, each possessing qualities the other needs. With this shall they maintain their sacredness, and they shall progress eternally together forever. Suppose you disagree with anything or are confused by anything, comment below. Click that like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching. And remember to keep it righteous.